Welcome back to Not Investment Advice. This episode is actually funny because we have a lumber trader and my buddy David Tops, a legitimate lumber trader from Vancouver, BC. And after this conversation, why it's funny is you're probably going to want to buy lumber. And wait, Dave's doing a face, maybe not.
I don't know if you've seen the board today, but
okay,
we've been limited down. But sorry, go ahead.
No. So I've known Dave since elementary. We've been longtime friends. And Dave, Dave, let's just walk right through it. How long have you been a lumber trader?
Since October 2012. So going on 7 years. Started my training then. At Olympic, we bring rookies in and they kind of go through the process through the trucking desk where you're booking freight kind of in and around North America to kind of get the senses of how lumber flows to and from.
Okay, so could you walk us through? Walk us through like literally your job, like what you're buying.
Sure.
You're literally buying lumber. You're holding it on. Are you essentially holding it like on your balance sheet and then selling it? And who are the buyers?
Yeah, exactly. So we buy. It really depends on how you are as a trader. A lot of traders actually kind of just do the old school wholesale process where they buy and sell it without actually taking a position. That's not how I roll. I kind of do it a little bit differently, like a few guys on our floor. So we buy from mills, whether, it's coming from, Western Canada all the way down to, Arkansas, et cetera. So there's about 30 traders on our floor, give or take, where we're buying lumber and selling lumber each and every day. So different species, different markets, different regions, different grades. From 2x4 spruce, which is what, the bellwether and southern yellow pine, to green Doug fir, low grade, et cetera. So on my day-to-day, 6:30 in the morning, we get up, we start early meeting, wait for the board to open. And then from then on, we're basically calling our mills on what, is being offered to buy. And also calling our customers on what they need to cover. So me personally, or at least Olympic, we're part of a group called Forest City. There's 9 other subsidiaries. So there's 9 other trading floors, kind of like us. I would say we're probably in the top 3 or 4 when it comes to actual volume of traders, and then we're probably in the top 2 or 3 when it comes to performance and margin every year. So
how much trading volume is done a day through you guys?
I would say right now, given the segment of the market, we're pretty big. I think the stats of last year, and just for the record, when it comes to factual numbers and stuff like that, please, for the record, I'm a lumber trader. We are not scientific in any manner. So
you're on the right podcast, don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was about 10. I think it's about 10% is what Forest City actually. Basically, we provide or buy and sell 10% of the housing in the United States. So it comes through. So it's a pretty big position. There's about 350 traders throughout the group. And there's a couple, competitors that Forest City deals with, but nobody quite like the size of us. So we buy from our mills, either we're, positional traders, like, you're going long, so a lot of guys go short. I would say I do a lot of that. But on the day to day, yeah, it's you're kind of, the funny thing about my position is that you kind of have to wear the bull and the bear hat every single phone call.
So every call is a different one, right?
Yeah, because if you're a buyer, you're a bear. You're selling and you're a bull. So
this is amazing. Yeah. So can you give us a bear? Can you give us you're buying right now. I'm on the phone. What are you telling me?
Yeah. So look at the board, right? You've got, you're coming off all-time highs. You've come off 30% in a matter of a couple of weeks. You have, lumber before this whole thing ran up, nobody even heard of it. I kind of was making a joke with my sister and girlfriend last night at dinner that it took lumber to go to 1,600 before a podcast even gave a shit.
Well, why don't you tell people what lumber was when you started?
Well, actually, can we just do one thing real quick, David? Just because for a lot of people who listen,
sure.
they might not even heard of what happened recently. So just to paint a picture,
Right.
because lumber was in the news quite a bit recently. So what the hell was going on there, man?
Yeah, there was a lot of Trung memes going around that was being kicked around. So yeah, so when I started trading, I mean the range that I remember lumber being traded at was basically anywhere between, call it like 250 to 400, and it was pretty much a pretty good. And then sometimes there was like, months where you would literally trade within like a $20 per thousand range, right? And so when COVID hit, lumber before COVID hit, lumber was doing well. It was doing about 354, 450. And then COVID news hit and it just cratered down to the mid to low twos. Everybody thought, including myself, that the world was coming to an end. But what happened was everybody was locked at home. And, all these DIY projects, everyone doing it yourself, that husband that was sitting around talking about how he's going to fix the deck actually had time to fix the deck. So, there was a mad scramble for lumber. So not only did you have supply constraints, just get hammered, but you also had demand skyrocket. So it was kind of a perfect storm. And what happened, obviously, is then everybody starts flocking to, to bigger homes, and they want to get out of this. So they start picking up the single detached, which, consumes a lot more lumber than the multifamily. So that was, now everybody's buying homes. You have interest rates at what there are, and you see a massive spike in home purchases. So everyone keeps buying. These developers, Lennar, whatever, et cetera. They keep releasing more job packs. All of a sudden, our customers keep having to cover. They can't find enough wood because, all the big mills were having real production issues because COVID cases here and there. Some Southern yellow pine mills would be shut down. Doug fir mills, workers weren't showing up. And so it was basically a clusterfuck, if you excuse the expression. But what happened was then all of a sudden you just have lumber go to all-time highs, and there were pockets there where it would kind of slow down. You'd be like, all right, here it's coming off. $1,000. You thought, fuck, here we go, we're going straight down. And 2 weeks later, we're quoting 1,500, and so it was just like you didn't really. And not actually 2 weeks, but it felt like, it just went to the moon. So it was definitely the last few months, especially, I would say actually 21. So yeah, the last few months, it's been extremely aggressive.
From 250 from basically when you started, as high as about 1,600, right? And as this happened, my instinct was, oh my God, like when I saw it happen, like I was literally texting our mutual friends. I'm like, oh my God, Dave must be so happy. But like when I asked you, you told me, well, what did you tell me? I'm like, how did you feel as it was ripping up? You weren't like excited or amazed, right? You were actually kind of worried.
Shit my pants. Yeah, for sure. Because I believe when you have markets move like that, the scar tissue or the I guess the after effect to me, I thought would be more detrimental to our income and our market and our industry more so than ever. So, I mean, obviously, everybody, but you have to understand, this is where I'm saying, like, when you're buying and selling an Airbnb stock or Google or whatever, you're clicking the button and you're seeing, blips of price discrepancies and stuff like that. You don't have that in lumber. I mean, you're talking to, some of my customers are the CEO of their lumber yard that they've had for 25 years. And that because of how they run their operation, they're locked in at their sell prices. And so what's happening is our customers in a pretty much I'll just say most of the market, they're net short. They sell jobs and they sell, prices to these developers, and they cover as they need, as the jobs start, et cetera. And so they work on a rolling average, and every customer is a little bit different. Some customers go back to the developers and ask for more money, and some don't. They stick with the integrity and kind of, I quoted this price, I'll stick with it. So I had customers calling me freaking out, and some guys are thinking about losing their job, or they're, there's been a lot of, so hearing that call, as much as you're making money and as much as, you want to sell and do and be profitable, there is a human effect that I guess you don't really feel until you get on the phone. So that's also, and that's why I'm saying you're switching your hats, because in the last 3 months, maybe not in the last month, but 3 months before, at some point, sometimes I felt more like a crisis counselor with some of my customers more than like a trader, because he's calling me. He's, I've got customers. What the hell do I do? I'm freaking out. I'm going to have to close shop. So, and these aren't like big, you've got the 84s and BFSs and BMCs. I mean, they're going to survive it, but you've got, retail yards that are, or contractor yards that are, in small cities across America that were really feeling it. So there was that aspect where you're like, as much as you want to make money, you kind of, as probably not the right term, but like I felt like I had to be somewhat of a human being and not scalp them and stuff like that. So
you were worried yourself that you would have to hold on to any lumber you bought, right? And it would crash.
So to give it some aspect. So when we buy, there's about 100,000 board feet per rail car. So we buy on a speculative nature, 50, 100, 200 cars. There's been times where I've negotiated on blocks of lumber, at 40, 50 cars at a time, right? Sometimes even more. Or I've been short 40, 50 cars at a time. So there's the nuances is not just the number, right? Like you're short 2x4 or short whatever, but you actually have to go cover it, right? So there's a physical aspect of the trade that you don't necessarily get when you're trading equities or futures. When I'm trading futures, it's no emotion, right? It is what it is. But so if I'm short, you also have tallies, you also have grades, you also have mill specific. Like, so there's the inert, like that, the situation is not just so black and white. So right now, we're probably at an all-time low of inventory, which is probably the best place we could be right now, given the sickness in the market right now. But I can trade everything from 2x4 spruce, number 2, Dougie, etc. And you have to kind of keep an eye on all that. So you're talking, then you've got your rail freight, you've got different mills, you've got different tallies, you've got different price discrepancies. So it's not just as black and white as buying 2x4 and selling 2x4. There's definitely a lot of moving parts.
And so, and you actually mentioned previously to me that even with the crazy price rise, like you've also done well in other markets too, right? It's like what makes a good lumber trader is being able to manage just different price environments in general. Like what makes a good lumber trader to you? Like what are kind of like
that's a great question, because I have a guy on our floor that I believe is probably the best lumber trader you'll ever meet. Like lumber, like he knows lumber. Like I don't know shit about lumber. I know pricing of lumber. I know where it's consumed at, and I know basically where I can liquidate, buy, etc. So I know market. He's a big lumber guru, but to me, he's not the best businessman. So he gets himself into trouble because he gets over his skis with positions. I mean, hundreds of millions of feet will be, his heart rate won't even move. So what makes a good trader to me is obviously you need to know your market, you need to know your customer, you need to know, price discovery, etc. But also risk management is kind of where a big thing because you can get the needle in this, like it can get pretty deep if you want it to, you can overindulge. So all of a sudden, because you have a physical, because you have what's called a roller, just for explanation, a roller is where if we speculate lumber, or when we speculate lumber, we have to give these mills where the destination is. But because it's a speculative nature, it's not always sold. So imagine you're buying, an ice cream cone, and you're saying, okay, well, I'll buy 5 ice cream cones and ship it to Phoenix, Arizona. Guess what? The ice cream can't really last that long because it melts. So you have a timeline. So as that car is rolling down the CN, about to hit the UP, you need to make sure you're selling that car before it hits destination. Amazing. So you do have, and sometimes it's again, risk portfolio. When I first started, Mike and I, we were, we'd sometimes and we'd have sometimes 50, 70 rollers in a down market, which look, if you all of a sudden you start taking $10,000 losses on cars, you're starting to sit there and sweat. But that's kind of the name of the trade. So what makes a good trader, to answer your question, is kind of a combination of having a little bit of good savvy, like business and, acumen, and making sure you don't blow yourself up, because you can do that pretty quick, in this industry. Like you can get way over your skis very quickly and not know how to get out of your
What
position.
would way over your skis look like? Like let's say that you came in one day and you had a certain view on the market and you just put your entire balance sheet on it and then you're off. You could lose that. You could lose everything in one day. Is that
Well,
kind of
here's the thing about the balance sheet is that like since I've started Olympic, there's been kind of you have a kind of an unlimited credit card when it comes to buying lumber. I mean, because of our credit is so good in the industry, and this is the one industry where there's no contracts when you buy a lumber. So when I call my mill and I buy 10, 20, 30, 40 cars of lumber, they'll say, send me the POs. There is no aspect where, I need to go and write a contract and they write a contract. And then we get our lawyers to look at it and make sure everything, the due diligence is there. The transaction is done with it like, yep, 750. Yep. Okay, good. Send me the PO. Done. That's how you can purchase $10 million of lumber just like that.
That's why there's no friction.
And you're talking to a guy who might be working at a mill in Brookings, Oregon, or you could be in Quesnel, BC, or you could be in Quebec, et cetera. So, and it's all the industry. That's how it all works. So it's old school because at the end of the day, there's a lot of games you can play. Do you put those cars on the list? Do you enter your orders right away? Are you trying to hide it and trade it for yourself? So luckily I work at a company that, definitely has kind of eradicated that, mantra. But there's a lot of different ways you can kind of play the game. So me personally, I think integrity is key. If guys on the floor don't trust you, I think, because of our nature, where if you buy something, you do have 20 other traders or 30 other traders trying to sell your wood, right? Because it's in their best interest too, because you make the margin and you split it. So integrity is key when it comes to, making sure that the guys on the floor know you, trust you, and they'll work your stuff, and especially in a down market. Like I can call these guys up, and because of the ball, how I put my own balls on the line, and I'll buy 30, 40 cars, they'll sell the wood and we'll split the profit and stuff like that. On the way down, I can also call them up and crack the whip, and they're pretty responsive in a polite way, like it's a mutual respect for each other. So it's funny because when I talk about lumber trading, like when I'm explaining it to people that don't know it always sounds very like ABC, like it's very simple. But when you get into like the actual day-to-day and who you're dealing with, what you're dealing with, the customers, it's all ego driven, right? Price discovery is one thing, but the next that's secondary to the ego of the human being you're dealing with on the buy side, on the sell side.
Is the ego part like, is that an example where like if you're on the phone with somebody, is like you don't want to lose that transaction? Is there a bit of that? It's like you both know that somebody is probably gonna quote unquote lose.
Well, think about it like this: if you're buying and selling protein, right? You're buying white powder vanilla protein, and and there's 10 guys in the same row at a trade show selling the exact same protein to the exact same 5 customers. What makes him buy your vanilla protein? I mean, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, you're just selling the exact same thing. And then, you have the second layer where, the same customers, they buy mill direct. So then you've got it's a 2-tiered market, right? You've got the wholesale community, the speculators, and then you've got also the actual manufacturers. So as much as some manufacturers don't want to sell us, they also know we're a vertical that's, we're a necessary evil, if you will call it, to make sure that because we provide so much liquidity. So, there's, yeah.
No, I just wanted to ask on that as like, there's a more specific question of, could you walk us through a time that you're personally over your skis and how you recovered and like, what was the feeling of that?
Yeah. I plead the fifth on some of this, but let's just say hypothetically.
You don't have to answer.
I know a guy. You can take a lot of orders. You can take a lot of business if you feel the market's going down. And sometimes when you have, say a boss or, who doesn't, again, ego driven. If your boss thinks the market's going up but you want to get short, and how do you explain that? Like, so sometimes you can take a lot of business quietly and, do it the old school way and just write it on a piece of paper. All right. So it's not the system. So now you've got a situation where the market's really moved against you and you're offside, $300-400 $1,000. So you're offside, call it like, 40%, or in some cases, you have, you're offside, $500,000 on cars and stuff like it. It's just, so how you can get over your skis is by, again, back to my integrity part. And this was something I learned early on, that, if you can't explain the trade and if you're not open and honest about it, it's probably not a good trade. So there's been times where I just had to dig myself out a hole quietly without letting anybody kind of know about it. So, I've had orders on
holes, right? You've been in 6-figure holes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, in 2018, so you have to understand, like in 2018, we had a run up of lumber that went from like 300 to 600 and everybody was on cloud nine. Nobody's ever seen it, right? $600 lumber was unheard of. It was, everybody was making money. I could tell how I didn't spot the top was guys on my floor buying boats and new cars and all that stuff. So it was like, clearly that's a top coming in somewhere, right? It was too equitable. So, and lumber turned from 600 to, so it took about, 10 months to have that, huge run up. And then within a matter of weeks, it went from 600 to like 200. So, I remember there was times where we had, 50, 60 cars rolling offside lumber, probably about $200 $1,000. And then you get to a point where they hit destination, they offload, and in our company, they write, it's called a write down. So they take the full amount of the lumber, like the cost, and put it towards your income. So you're staring at, minus $500,000, minus,
on a single day.
Yeah. And so I will say, like, to me, I have never been in that situation. I would say, if you look at I actually just did this. If you look at my track record over the last 6 years, I've had one negative month my entire career. I've had one time where, and it was that kind of market where it just, aside from that, I've always been able to trade my way out. I can't say the same for a lot of the other big traders. There was a gentleman on our floor, phenomenal trader, but again, back to him getting over his skis, where, he's taking $4 million losses, so, and I mean,
on a single day. On a single day?
No, not a single day. No, not a single day. It's because of the physical, right? You always have some sort of liquidity, and because of the customer relationship base, you can always pick up that phone for guys you've been doing 20 years of business with, and literally tell him to buy the fucking cars. Like, you need a PO. You're not getting off the phone until you get it, which is different because, like, there is, like, so what I was explaining earlier was like that run up, you want to make sure you're being fair to your customers, right? You don't want to price gouge, even though you can. But on the way down, the customers, because they're net short, are now covering with margin. So the power struggle has kind of changed, right? So now it's like, well, who wants to be fair to who, and how do you get decent order? So just for all intents and purposes, the way lumber is traded is nowhere near like oil or equities or stuff like that. We're a microcosm to those markets. It's just, I mean, open interest for July right now, like 1,100 contracts. That's a spot month. I mean, that's probably, you probably don't even notice that on.
Well, you told me that the futures market on lumber is a 60th the size of the cheese market.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact thing, but I was reading. But the cheese market is far times, like, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So I don't want to be quoted on the exact number, but we always joke about that. It's, and so to speak truth, it is being paid attention to right now, because at the end of the day, what got your attention was the price of lumber, but what got that attention was the guy in middle America going to a lumber yard and trying to buy a stick of lumber, and all of a sudden looks at a price tag, he goes, "The fuck are you talking about?"
No,
It's a
100%.
2x4, you know? So that got attention, then that got, so the media, and then boom. And then before you know it, here's Trung Fan, you know, the meme king,
making
all
memes
of a
of
sudden
it.
making memes of lumber.
Well,
That
Dave,
goes,
let me
wait
ask
a
you that.
second, I actually know an idiot who trades this shit. Let me talk to him.
Well, let me, well, definitely not an idiot, man. You are very smart. You do. But what I asked is then, let me ask you the last question is, when these memes started coming out, how hard were the lumber traders laughing? Like, what it must have been surreal.
There's actually a guy on our floor, Stefan. He actually sends out some. He sent out one today. Yeah, I could send it to you later, but it was like, you know, that meme, that clown meme or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's like so it was like the top. I'm looking at, the top one was didn't buy AMZ, didn't buy GME, didn't buy the crypto dip, and then the last one was the full clown, was bought lumber at the top. So, so the memes are pretty rampant. You have to understand, a lot of these guys on our floor, not so much anymore, but there's quite a few guys on our floor that have been in this industry for 30 plus years, right? 25 years. And what they've just seen has been, you know, absolutely crazy. So they're seeing these things and just are howling at them because fuck, it's funny.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, that was on the trading aspect, it's a very different mindset than trading, you know, equities and stuff like that. You have to talk to the person you're countering. You know, you have a mill that's producing lumber that, you know, they're always a bull, right? They always think lumber's going up. So then you got to call them and tell them that their lumber's worth less and that they're a shit salesman and they should take this offer. And, you know, like that, there's one, and then you got to tell the customer like, hey, so it's hard because then you get paid on margin. So how do you get short? You know, do you want to be honest? Do you want to tell them exactly what's going on? But you also have to understand they need to make their money too. So the nature of the beast is everything is kind of a cloud of smoke in a way. You know, it is.
I think that's the perfect way to end it. The nature of the beast is everything's a cloud of smoke. Did you guys have any questions for Dave?
Jack, anything?
No, I was, you covered the question I had, which was going to be about the logistics, like how much you have to factor in, like where it's going, who's buying it. And
it's actually, I would say it's 50% of the trade. I always make a joke to the rookies that you have your lumber costs and then you have your freight costs. And so what happens, especially right now with trucking just being so extremely tight across North America, you put on a trade today, and by the time you have to call the wood ready and ship the truck, all of a sudden the freight's gone up, 20%. So your margin, instead of making money, you're now losing money. So there's a freight arbitrage that you kind of can kind of be a bit of a death nail, So me personally, I don't really trade trucks. I do more cars, rail cars. Volume is how you get paid. So that's kind of where I focus on. But again, UP, rail rates, diversions, rail, all the rail lines are getting a little bit harder to deal with when it comes to changing destos and stuff like that. And then you've got on the mill side, it used to be quite wholesale and trader friendly, but that's also turning as well. So now they make you firm desto wood or your cars. So even if you're right on the speculative nature and you're right on the price increase, but you've shipped it to the wrong, say, state or the wrong city, you can actually end up losing money even though you're technically right. So
that's amazing.
The freight and the logistics is a huge part of our business for sure.
Amazing.
Where you see the future of the industry, like you think this is going to be like belly to belly sales forever?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously I'm sitting in a chair that, puts a roof over my head for buying and selling lumber. So hopefully things don't change. But I mean, I could see things, as technology evolves and stuff like that, I could see some of these mills getting a little bit, more technologically advanced. You would be surprised how antiquated our industry is. I mean, a lot of these guys still use fax machines. Like that's how they want their copy, and you're like, a fax machine, shit. Like, what are you talking about? So like, I will say that the old school mindset of my daddy used to buy lumber here. And so that whole mindset is actually kind of an advantage for us because it feels like they don't want to evolve. And the lack of evolution is helping us kind of garner more market share when it comes to buying and selling. More, mills kind of look more to us for liquidity. So they know that we're doing basis and reverse basis. They know we're putting wood on the ground. We're importing wood from Germany and Europe and stuff like that. So all of a sudden, the mill can pick up the phone and call one trader like myself, sell 50 to 100 cars versus pick up the phone. And, so I think right now the time is on our side, but things can change in a hurry too. As long as Amazon doesn't start shipping lumber, I think we're okay.
Here's Prime delivery.
Here's actually here's a super last question. We'll let Dave ask Jack a question and Bilal. So Dave has been getting into crypto investing. He's been taking some of his lumber profits, going deep into crypto. So
Love it, dude.
Jack,
you got to diversify.
Okay. Dave, check this. Jack sold an NFT of a tweet for 70 ETH. So this guy's deep in the game, man. You ask him what you want about crypto investing.
Okay, so here's my path to crypto investing. 2008 or somewhere, my buddy's in a basement telling me about Bitcoin. I'm thinking this guy's on fucking blue or something, right? Thinking what the hell is he talking about? Fast forward, all of a sudden, a couple of my buddies are, they're buying this Cardano, whatever, and I'm thinking again, what the hell are these guys talking about? So I wait until about March of 2021, and I decide, screw it, I'm going to start putting some in. So I could be the first trader in history that waited until about a $50,000, $60,000 Bitcoin, and that's when I piled in. And that's where
We've been there, man. We've been there.
If I saw the light, if you will, and I thought, Jesus Christ. So I can't, I don't really have anything to talk about crypto aside from hopefully this hodling thing is a real thing. But I will ask this to ask if you guys are heavily into it. Where do you see it kind of, everybody, you're asking me about lumber and nobody knows, right? But where do you guys kind of see it transitioning when it comes to more on the commercial side? Like instead of your day-to-day, buyers sitting in, their basement buying, the dip, which by the way, I've done that 5 times. Doesn't seem to come back, but where do you see it kind of coming back on the commercial side? Like where do you see the growth happening where, businesses and such will start to put, billions of dollars and hundreds of millions instead of, 20,000 and stuff?
Well, this we talked earlier a bit about the El Salvador thing's a big move. One of the reasons being that if the U.S. has to consider Bitcoin as a foreign currency, from a corporate treasury perspective, Bitcoin can be on an accounting basis treated like other securities and assets. Because right now, if it goes down, you have to mark it down. But if it goes up, you can't mark it up because of the way it's treated. So that could be a big thing. We have no idea what's going to happen though, which we talked about earlier. I think from a more commercial standpoint, Jack and Bilal both are big Ethereum believers, and they could talk you through what they think the future is of those, but. That's
one thing I'll just add, David. I definitely don't know what I'm talking about, but from other people who know more than me, I just did an interview 2 days ago with an early ETH guy who's heavy in the community, and he's like a technical dude. And so I haven't verified this, but he mentioned something about governments in Europe creating infrastructure with Ethereum, and I think stuff like that is a huge thing that's going to move things forward. But then you've also got the institutions putting on their balance sheet, which we obviously saw with like Tesla, famously or infamously now, as well as other companies like MicroStrategy. So I think more of those sort of companies, there will be more companies who do that as a hedge against inflation. And obviously, all about inflation with what you're doing. And then I think there's all of the institutional money that I think has already been doing it in the background. Like some of it's come out, like this big institutional money is putting, getting at least some exposure, whether that's like 1% to 3%, like they might have done traditionally with gold. I'm hearing like even people like Kevin O'Leary, the guy from Shark Tank, who I see as like sitting in the old school world, adjacent to all these older dudes who are investing in that world and have always believed in gold. And he was someone who was very anti-Bitcoin and crypto in general. And then even he's now increasing his number, I think, to 5%, maybe going all the way up to 10%. You probably heard it on Pump's podcast.
I saw that. Well, I actually watched that podcast, and it was interesting because he is a bit of an old school thinker when it comes to some things. But I also feel like he's pretty progressive when he feels like he's smart enough where he can change the tap. But I actually watched that podcast, or I watched it on YouTube or whatever. But I guess where I've been kind of more focusing, maybe you guys can tell me if I'm on the right track, but I've been focusing more on the coins that actually produce and create, some sort of solution. So like I've been, more to Cardano and Polkadot, stuff like that. Like, so, because I do believe that smart chain, blockchain, whatever is going to be smart contracts and blockchain is definitely going to be kind of the wave of the future. I don't know how and what they do with it. We'll find out. But in the meantime, is that where you guys are kind of I know Ether's kind of the same thing. Is that where you're putting more of your fiat?
Yeah, my broad thesis is the same idea. It's like, as you were talking, I was thinking about the Bezos, your margin is my opportunity, right? The idea that code as law and smart contracts is a sponge for like all of the inefficiency in all of these industries where you have middlemen in every transaction inflating the cost of that transaction, and like well-engineered blockchain products can remove that cost, and you're going to be exposed to the upside of removing that cost as an investor in something like Ethereum. Like, how many freaking geniuses are working on versions of that in X industry? So think if you can get exposure to the asset at that level, it's a fairly decent bet. And we always recall Balaji interview. I don't know if you listened to that one with Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, I sent that to Dave, actually. I was like, Dave, you're listening to this.
But yeah,
was that the guy that was yeah, I think he did, Trung. That guy's on a different level, though. Like,
smartest guy in the world, that guy. It was definitely that guy.
He was. Yeah, I wouldn't mind a bottle of freaking whiskey, some party favors, and hang out with that dude for a few hours.
Yeah, he's 50% Bitcoin, 50% Ethereum, which in 10 years time, will there be smarter bets in crypto? Yes, in hindsight, but will you capture a shitload of upside by making that very simple allocation? His bet is yes, and he's been right for a long time.
Yeah, I've realized
investment advice.
That's the one thing you have to realize, that about that old saying, like, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I guess in the last few years, when I started to make actual life-changing money and stuff, what I've kind of just followed is just follow the nerds. Like, let the nerds dictate. Just put your money with those guys. And it's just like, you look at them. I mean, everybody, it's not the cool guy that's making the money right now. It's all the nerds and tech and stuff like that. So it's like, once I saw that Vitalik guy, I was like, yeah, he can have my money. Just give it to him. So
every time I hear him speak on a podcast, I buy more.
So let's end on this.
Charles Hoskins, yeah.
Dave is literally buying lumber from a mill in Oregon, stripping it to a lumber yard in Phoenix, taking that money and giving it to Vitalik. That's
exactly
the virtuous cycle, man.
And I did buy, what was it? Coinbase. Yeah, I bought that IPO or whatever. That was a good one too. So
I know that you've been hitting the top, left, right, and center.
Totally. Luckily in lumber, I know what I'm doing. So about 4 weeks ago, I pretty much got rid of all my shit, and I got heavy short. So I'm kind of just waiting for this. And the market is. I mean, it's not something you should kind of go out there and say, because it's kind of like a taboo topic in lumber. But at the end of the day, markets go up and markets go down, and I need to keep a roof over my head. So at the end of the day, I got pretty heavy short, and it's paying out. So crypto can keep taking my money.
Beautiful, man. David, thank you, bro. That was amazing. Man.
Thanks for joining us, dude.
No problem,
super
guys.
interesting.
Dave,
Thanks for your
I'll catch
time.
you soon separately. I'm sure I'll see you. I'll ping you on the text game.
Yeah, for sure. Take care, guys.
Take
Peace out,
it easy,
Dave.
man.